Marcellas, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. I'm just
Are
sitting here
you?
chatting with lovely people all around the world all day
I
today.
I checked in and I saw a little bit of Dita Von Teese, which is like, legend. And then I saw a little bit of the gentleman before me. So then I got off when you got off because I thought you were taking somebody before me, but now I'm back. So I was like, let me just hang out, be dressed and ready just in case anything goes awry.
Yes, and something has gone awry as expected, which
Of
is
course.
part of the fun of
It's a new millennium, so of course something has gone awry.
exactly. So, Marcellas, did we meet before? Because we might have met before at one of Eric's parties.
I feel like we might have met before because Eric and I were roommates for a couple of years when he lived in what they're calling Beverlywood now, but when he lived right by the Beverly Center, we were roommates for a
Yeah.
while. Been friends like for years, so we probably met in passing at one of those parties, or probably even shared a cocktail at one of those parties at the old house,
Well,
which I miss desperately.
yes, we're just gonna say that we've met then.
Yes. Why not?
Right? And so let's tell the people what you're all about, because you have a very exciting book, which is your first book, yes?
It took 8 years to bring this baby to bring this baby to reality. But I do have a book. The book is called Supreme Models, Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Fashion. I happen to have my personal copy right here.
Look at that.
I've got this weird spotlight on, and it's good for the face, but see this spotlight, it blasts everything I try to show. So I wonder if I should turn it off. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off.
Okay.
Anyway, so Supreme Models, Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Fashion. It's the first ever art book devoted to Black models. And I started the journey in 2011. And it took that long to write it, and it took that long to research it, and it took that long to get it right. Then it took a couple of years to actually sell it. I had some starts and stops. It was at Toshin for a minute. It was at Sterling Lord Literistic for a minute. And then, things don't play out the way you think they are, and you just have to pick yourself up and keep going. And then finally in 2018, Abrams got it. And Abrams was the perfect place for it. And actually thinking back about it, because of the subject matter, because it's, I don't like to say it's a Black book because it's a fashion book. I am a fashion stylist, and I used to be a model, and that's how I started my career. That's how I started my journey. So I love fashion. But because the topic of the book is Black women, then people want to automatically sort of say, oh, it's a Black book. But it's a Black book, but that sort of takes away from everybody who contributed to the book. All the photographers, hair and makeup people, the stylists, the art directors, the editors who aren't Black, who were part of making these incredible legendary images. So even though it's a book about Black women, it's a book about fashion. And I think everybody will love this book because it, if you love fashion, you love models. And it's got greats. It's Naomi Campbell, Iman, Leah Kabede. And I go back as far as the 1940s, and it really has become like a history lesson of the Black model's impact on fashion. So it's a really great sort of read. It's a giant picture book, basically. It's like, I always, look, I just opened
Beverly
it right
Johnson.
there. Beverly Johnson's, historic first cover of American Vogue. The first Black woman on the cover of Beverly Johnson. But I always say it's a great, sort of flip book, because you just flip through it and every image is just arresting. Yeah. So I think it's got something for sort of everyone. And then it's new models like Maya and Nicholas, and then it's older models like the legends, like Donyale Luna, the first Black woman on the cover of British Vogue, the first Black woman on the cover of any Vogue. So it's really an interesting book because it kind of traces the history from the 1940s forward.
And so did you structure the book chronologically? Was that your...
Well, so I wasn't going to do that at first. Originally, I was just going to do the book. Yes, Glam School, get your hands on it. Hey, Bex. See, when I do these, I shout out to all the people.
You can do that. There is no rules. We have no...
Annoying. But it starts out well. I was going to just do it. I was just going to put the models in and put them alphabetically and let it lie where it laid. But because of that, and then since it's an art book, because of that, it's all about the photos. So the photos from the 40s and 50s didn't really sort of stand up to the contemporary photos. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to take out these women from the 40s and 50s, but that's not doing honor to the history.
Yeah.
And so I gave them their own section, these trailblazers from the 1940s and 50s, like Dorothea Towles and Helen Williams, the first dark-skinned model to really break through, Sarah Lou Harris, and put them in the front. And also that's where I talked about Ebony Magazine, because that's what really started the sort of need for Black models. Because Ebony Magazine was started to be the Black alternative to Life magazine and Time magazine, those magazines that sort of chronicled everyday life in white America. And so we needed Black models to talk about fashion and to talk about, you know, living well and talk about beauty, because we did have those industries that were back then very separate from mainstream industries. So it just sort of, I put that in the front. Then there's a really pivotal person in fashion. And I don't want to talk about the book and start getting up. Every time you open the page, it opens. I'm on today. It's opening to the exact page. But there's a pivotal person in fashion that I call the godmother, and her name is Beth Ann Hardison. And she started in the late 60s as a model and sort of was a muse to like Halston and Giorgio Santangelo and to all these amazing, Stephen Burrows and Willie Smith, all these amazing designers.
Oh, she, I believe, appears in the Battle at Versailles documentary,
Yes!
which is amazing. And you can watch it for free. It should be on YouTube still. People should look it up.
She went to the Battle of Versailles. She went with like Pat Cleveland, who's in the book.
Yep.
So many iconic, you know, it was like what, 23 models. The 5 American designers took 23 models to Paris to do the Battle of Versailles, which was to see who was going to be named the best designers in the world. And of course, the Parisian couturiers thought they had this on lock. And the Americans, who were known for sportswear, literally went over there. They bought the girls that were their muses. You know, Pat Cleveland, Beth Ann Hardison, all the models of the day, and just killed it. It was the first time that a lot of fashion people had seen that many Black models on the runway at once. And it really just kicked open the doors for the Black model in Europe. That's when YSL and all the major designers started using African-American women in their collections from that moment forward. So amazing. Yeah, the Battle of Versailles is everything. And Beth Ann was in there.
Yeah, I believe actually Battle of Versailles is being, there's the documentary, which was based on a book, and I believe it is now being
by Robin Given.
What?
By Robin Given.
Yes.
I think that's her name, Givhan, or is it Gavon?
One of the two, but yeah, I follow her on Instagram. She's a fashion writer.
Oh, and she's amazing. She's definitely one of the people that, like, before this book, I sort of wrote. You know what I mean? I did like articles when I was asked in fashion magazines. I had a monthly article for a very long time in a gay magazine that ran just in Southern California. So I knew I wanted to write, but I didn't know if I could write. And then, you know, God gave me an idea and I pursued it. And now I'm a writer.
That's how it goes. You start putting words together and there you are. You're a writer.
And there you are.
But I believe Battle at Versailles is being turned into a miniseries for
by
HBO.
Ava DuVernay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And
I don't know what the status of it is, but that's what I started.
Anything that Ava gets her hands on is like amazing. You know what I mean? What's crazy is a dear friend of mine earlier this year gave Ava a copy of my book. As a gift. She went in for an interview with her and they talked about everything and they talked about the documentary and they talked about life. My friend Bridget was like, it was such a good conversation, I want to go back and take her a gift, and the gift I'm taking her is a signed copy of your book. So she gave her a copy of my book, which sounds crazy that like Ava DuVernay has a copy of my book, but yes, she does.
Because when did someone's asking for the name of your book again.
So it's Supreme Models if you Google it. And I meant to put the link up. I texted it to myself. But it's Supreme Models, and then the subtitle is Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Fashion. And it starts at 1945 and it comes to right now. There are so many girls that are working right now in this book. And I don't mean to be misogynist and say girls, because I say girls all the time when I'm talking about gay men, because I would be like, if you and I were talking, I'd be like, girls. But then as a fashion stylist, we always refer to models, no matter their age, as girl. So
it's
like
true.
even if you're doing like senior girls or you're doing like elegance, you would still be like, okay, who are the girls today?
Exactly, yeah.
Prep, So they're eternally, no matter what their age is, a girl. And it's not disrespectful, because we hold models in fashion to such high reverence. You know what I mean? So I always feel like if there's somebody non-fashion that's listening and I say girl, they're like, I am a grown woman.
Yeah. No. It's a fashion term.
But, you know, in fashion, you love women of all races. You know, they're eternally girls. Even if it's like Carmen or Iman, they're like eternally girls. So no disrespect. So there's girls in the book like Delone and Mayawa and Jennifer and the girl that's on the cover, the woman that's on the cover, who are breaking right now. And so it's a really interesting book because it spans this like sort of test of time.
And did you interview then a lot of these models? Are there stories from them in the book?
Yes, that's one of the things, because I collect, your fans are so sweet. I collect art books, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to do this book. So I collect books on models and photographers and on fashion designers from all, eras.
Uh-huh.
And it was very important to me. What I noticed in these books is that they don't talk to the model. They talk to editors and photographers and everybody else about the model. And I had been a model, and I'm currently a fashion stylist, so I knew a lot of models. Mm-hmm. So I was like, there's my friend Eric Salatowski. I've got a lot of like friends that are in the business, and I know a lot of stories because I was right there when those stories were happening.
Mm-hmm.
The gay guy is always there with his girlfriend running them streets. So I was like, if I've got these incredible stories from having been a model, I know that these models have stories. So I just picked up the phone one day after, like literally in 2011 when I decided to do it. And I was like, let me start calling the people I know. And I would tell them, hey, I'm writing a book. And they would be like, what? About what? Great. And I would be like, about you, about Black models. And they're like, oh my God, let's do it. And so I interviewed there's like 70 models in the book, 72. And I interviewed, lovely. Hi, Doris. I interviewed like 40 girls. And of course, a lot of them didn't make the book because at the end of the day, the book is about the photos.
Yeah.
But the interviews that are in the book are amazing. And they really shine a light on what it's like to work in fashion, what it's like to be discovered, and what it's like to be a woman in fashion, and what it's like to be, because women in fashion, especially modeling, wield a lot of power. So what it's like to have power and what it's like to feel powerless. The reason that I always say that this was the time for this book is because if I had done it years ago, we weren't talking about race in the same way that we're talking about it now. Mm-hmm. We're openly having discussions about racism, colorism, about all the isms in fashion.
And representation,
representation, the need for diversity. We weren't having conversations about Me Too. Yeah. Which happened a lot in fashion.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't having conversations about the natural hair movement. It was very political for Abrams, who ultimately chose the cover photo. I sent them 10 photos I thought should be on the cover, and they chose the cover. They chose the photo out of those 10s. But it was very political for them to put a picture of a dark-skinned Black woman on the cover.
But that's what the book is about.
And it's what the book, but they could have put Tyra,
Oh yeah, because you're talking about colorism there, so that it was the fact that it was a choice of a very dark-skinned Black woman as opposed to fairer skin.
Right, who doesn't have a weave, who doesn't appear to have hair in this photo, even though she really does. It's pulled back. Hey, Kwaftu. So it's really important. It was a really important statement. And, you know, I cried like a baby when I got the cover and it was like a dark-skinned woman because I sent multiple pictures of Naomi, the queen. I sent pictures of Iman. I sent a picture of Leah Kabedi that I really wanted. I sent a picture of a group of new girls, like a 3-shot of new girls. Iman Hammam, who they say is the new Iman because her name's Iman. Delone, who I love, and a model named Aminata. Gorgeous picture from Elle. And it was like the full spectrum. There was like an Afro-Latina girl. There was a Muslim girl that's like sort of big curly hair, sort of fair skin. And then there was a very dark skinned African girl with short afro. And I thought this is the cover because it hits all the marks. Nobody is going to look at that photo and be like, why am I not represented on it? But Abrams picked the darkest girl out of the bunch. And I couldn't be happier.
I mean, someone asked in the question if the book is available in the UK. Do you have a distributor there?
It's all over. Abrams Chronicle distributes it in the UK, which is the UK arm of Abrams Books. And it did really well. It's done really well everywhere, but it's done really well in the UK. Before the book even came out, it was like, there was like kind of like a little bit of a buzz about it, but the buzz was coming from the UK. Like Pride magazine in the UK and British Vogue were writing about it. And the first big write-up about it before the book came out, I'm getting chill bumps thinking about it, was Marie Claire UK. And I was over here like, what's going on in the UK? Like, how y'all know about that?
Yeah, it's funny how different international audiences can respond to things differently, and also how they are, for probably some very obvious reasons, they may have different levels of baggage or fear addressing issues of race. But I think about, it was Italian Vogue that did the all-black issue, that sold out, 4 printings or something?
Yeah. Yes.
It was like off the chart.
Can I tell you okay, not to name drop. Hi, Ozzy, not to name drop, but I worked with Sharon Stone as a stylist before in my past, and Sharon is a doll. Like, she is a legend. She's everything you think she's going to be. And really intimidating for sort of a little black gay boy from the south side of Chicago, to walk into Sharon Stone's compound and think, okay, I'm here, I've arrived. And we sort of remained friends, even though we didn't continue to work together because I was pursuing a career in front of the camera and she was using me for movies. So it means I would have to go to away and go to set and sit there, that kind of thing. But when the British Vogue came out at 2 in the morning, I'm on the computer and I get an email from Sharon Stone, and it's a direct link to the Black British Vogue, the Black Italian Vogue, Vogue Italia. And I'm like, so immediately I'm like this. I'm like, why is Sharon Stone emailing me at 2 in the morning? What did I do? And then I'm like, you're not working with her anymore. You're just friends. And I'm like, how am I friends with Sharon Stone? Then I'm like, so I'm like, instead of, looking at the email, I'm just going through this whole thing in my head of Sharon Stone just emailed me. And it was linked to the Vogue Italia article. And she just says, it's about time. And I was like, yes, Miss Stone, for being awake. But that issue did sell out 4 times. And they did multiple covers. And I have that issue actually in storage. I have 2 covers still in the plastic. I have the Leah Kabedi cover because they did a bunch of different covers. And I have the Cecily Lopez cover. And Cecily and Leah are both in the book. And I tried to get the Italian Vogue photos for the book, but they were crazy expensive because Stephen Meisel shot them. And they were really sort of particular about usage for those particular. But there's a ton of Vogue Italia photos in my book. There's Vogue Italia photos of Veronica Webb and a beautiful essay. Veronica Webb wrote my foreword, so that's no slack right there. There's a ton of Vogue. There's a ton of just Vogue in the book. American Vogue, Vogue Italia, Vogue Japan. Like, it's like so crazy where I got these photos from. It's crazy.
I have a couple questions that came to mind about this. The one is, I suppose when the models are being interviewed in their discussions, they might address this issue. But I know, one element of not including Black and African American models in a lot of fashion media was that the businesses or brands or entities would claim that they didn't have anyone that knew how to do Black hair or makeup. And so that is one often not thought of, barrier that was something that needed to be addressed, because you needed the model, but you also needed people who could actually understand how to work with different hair and skin than white people.
Okay, so let me tell you this, because I've become sort of this advocate for African American models and for African American and people of color. I'm going to couch it under people of color because it's not just me. It's not just Black people. It's Asian people. It's Latino people. It's every person of color that wants to sort of get in fashion or is in fashion. And so one of the things, I've been a stylist since 2000. And I started really full-time styling in 2002. And before that, I had been a model from 1995 until 2000. And one of the things that I learned as a model was that there were hair and makeup people that would behave badly with complete impunity. They felt, I would go to set and they would be like, oh, well, we're just going to take away your shine because I don't have any colors that match your skin. So basically what you're telling me is that you've been employed to do a job and you came unprepared for your job and you don't know how to do your job. And I would sit in chairs when I was a model and even stand around as when I was a stylist. I stopped doing straightforward catalog styling in like 2017. And one of the last bookings I had for a major retailer, my girl that day was a Black woman with natural hair. Perfect, beautiful, like a Black Barbie, insane body, one of the sweetest girls you've ever met in your entire life. Big natural curls. So she came to set with her hair done because she rolls out of bed and her hair is done. And a hair and makeup artist that I had worked with for years, that I've known for years, who is in fact lazy, actually said to this girl, you know what, I can't do anything with your hair. And so by the time the girl gets to me in the styling room, she's a mess because she feels like it's her fault. Like there's something wrong with the hair that grows out of her head. And I had to stand there as the stylist and put her back together because we were shooting like 80 looks that day. It was ecom. And so I was like, I'm not going to say her name, but I was like, you are perfect. You are beautiful. You are divine. That is that person's fault. And I went to the producer that day and I told them about that hair and makeup artist because I had experienced that hair and makeup artist doing that for so many years to so many girls. And I had been on sets where they had sent girls home because that hair and makeup artist was like, I don't know what to do with her hair. I don't know what to do with her makeup. And she would say that with impunity and know that she was still going to be there for the 3 to 5 days that she was booked.
Yeah, she wasn't going to get fired.
And they were going to say she wasn't going to get fired. And they would send the girl home who was working for like a day and needed that job to pay her bills. But not even to pay her bills, but to fortify herself as a model. Because you are what you do.
Yeah.
And if you're not working as a model and you're not actually exercising those booms, those muscles, are you really a model? And so you go and you like are so happy to be on set and ready to work and somebody destroys you like that. And you feel like, what bizarro world do I live in? You just told me my hair and my skin, there's something wrong with it. And now I'm being penalized financially. So I've been on a lot of sets like that. And I've been talking about that a lot in interviews. And if there were, so I'm not saying we need, only Black people can do Black hair and makeup. But those people that have been doing hair and makeup for 20, 30 years need to go back to school and relearn their trade, their craft.
Yes.
Because it's a new world. And we also need to start telling little kids that are people of color, that it's not just about growing up to be a doctor or a police officer, that you can be a hair and makeup artist and make six figures.
Yeah.
You can be a fashion stylist that makes six figures and be creative. You know what I mean? So we have to bring more people, and more people of color need to be behind the scenes in fashion. When I see things like the H&M, when they put the coolest monkey in the tree, that shirt on a little black boy, if I had been on that set, I would have been like, there's nothing wrong with this t-shirt. Let's put it on a little white boy. Don't put it on a black boy, put it on a little white boy, and let's keep going. But I would have damn for sure with that Gucci thing, with the black face and the red lips, seeing that, and I would have been like, you know what, guys, that's troubling. So let's not do that sweater in black with lips. Let's do that sweater in every other color combination possible. Yeah. But we're not going to do it with black and red lips. And then I can tell you why. And I think there's sometimes needs to be a person of color on those sets, so that they can...
And more than one, because if you have one, often that individual knows, like, you feel the weight of all of that. And so, you know, there needs to be, you know, a lot of experienced and individuals and people from different backgrounds who, you know, can also support each other when you say, you know, I think there's an issue with this, or I think there's an issue with that, so that you're not the only person.
And I tell you, for so many years, I was the only person on set, the only gay person and the only black person. So you feel this crazy responsibility. Yeah. And for so many years, I wouldn't speak up because I didn't want to be the one to take the hit financially. If you're the one that's always crying, that's racist, or that's sexist, or that's homophobic, then all of a sudden they look at you and they're like,
they're like,
you got an attitude, you've got a problem, go home.
Yeah.
The heroes sometimes, you know. I think you know that as a gay man, we hear things that happen, people say things like, oh, that's gay, or there's this new black thing where they're like, pause, and pause means, with black men, it means that could be considered gay. And it's like, you know,
I just learned something. I did not know that.
My nephew said it. My nephew told me the other day, and I was like, you know what, that's still homophobia. You know, if you say something is, oh, that's gay, and that's supposed to mean that that's not cool. Well, bitch, gay guys are the coolest of the cool. You know, we start cool. We're the arbiters of cool. We tell the world what's cool. Once we move into a neighborhood, that neighborhood becomes cool. Once we start wearing the designer, that design becomes cool. Like, we tell you what's cool. So for you to be like, that's gay, and mean that negatively, I'm sorry, you're missing the mark. That's gay shouldn't be a slur. That's gay should be like, yes, that's everything. Oh, that's gay, because that's amazing.
Right? I think my shirt is pretty gay. And I'm
like your shirt, that's gay, because your shirt's amazing.
I'm looking forward to wearing this out in the world. I have another more gayness, or just general happiness and rainbowness.
Yes. We can't get enough of in the world right now.
Right? Maybe this is addressed in the book somewhere, or you have some thoughts on this, is that because of course once if you're a model of color, if you're a black female model and you become superstar, supermodel level, that is, and you're in a show, you're in catalogs, you're in magazines, you are still representing people of color, of course, in a way, but you've become, I mean, you're essentially a celebrity. Whereas there's also the story of your more just general catalog models of color. And in many ways, maybe that's more important, because those are the models that can really represent, you know, everyone, because it's not like, oh, well, she got the job because that's Tyra, or, you know, it takes away the celebrity element, and you're just seeing people of color, and it's easier to sort of see oneself in those people whose names you don't know yet.
So wait, I wasn't being rude. What I was trying to do was, I was trying to send the link to my book Supreme Models, the book page for Supreme Models, so that people could click on that link and go to the Amazon page, because the book is at Amazon. Even though I would prefer that you bought the book from your neighborhood bookstore or from a museum bookstore, because the book is at like the Smithsonian, the book is at the Metropolitan Museum, it's everywhere. But that Supreme Models link is the link to the book. And I think it should show up. I don't know for certain because I'm not computer savvy at all, but I tried it. So I was listening to your thing, what you said about catalog. You know what? We like, you know, in fashion, it's all about the editorial girl. It's about the superstar. It's about the runway girl. But the girls that are on the feet on the ground, the girls that are doing the work, the girls that are being seen in your monthly circular, in Target, in Macy's ads and Bloomingdale's ads, those are the girls that are like working, and those are the girls that are pushing it forward, because those are the girls that you're really seeing day to day. That girl that happens to be on the side of the bus for like Jones, New York. You know what I mean? That girl that like you walk into Walmart and there's a black model standing there in a pair of leggings. You know what I mean? She's subtly communicating to you, of all races, white, black, Latino, Asian, is that women of all races and all sizes and all ages matter. Mm-hmm. Because most often when you see a girl in a catalog, she's like not your like 14-year-old brand new star that's about to take fashion by storm and do all the high-end designers. She's that girl that's just like trying to get it, you know, trying to get a check and keep it moving. You know what I mean? But she's also the girl that everybody sees. You know, in the book, there's two girls in particular, and one of them is going to kill me for saying this, but there's two girls in particular in the book that were huge catalog girls in the 80s and in the 90s. Gail O'Neill and Cynthia Bailey, who's a dear friend of mine who's on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Those girls were pulling down like $1 million a year being catalog girls, because they were in every catalog that hit your mama's table. They were in Macy's, they were in Bloomingdale's. Back then there was before the retail apocalypse that we sort of been living through the last 20 years, back then there was a million great department stores. There was Imagnon, there was Bonwit Teller, there was Riches, there was Robinson's May, there was Dillard's, there was Yonkers, there was this, that, and everything else. You know, there was Marshall Fields. If you're from Chicago, Marshall Fields was everything. And those girls were doing those catalogs working for every single catalog there was. They were making their chips, you know what I mean? But they were also changing the ideal of beauty, because those magazines were in everybody's home. They were in everybody's houses. Vogue Italia is not in everybody's house.
No.
American Vogue is not in everybody's house. Hell, Essence is not in everybody's house. But everybody got that Bloomingdale's catalog, or that Sears catalog, or that Kmart catalog, or that Venture catalog, or, you know, it didn't have to be high-end like Bloomies or Saks or Neiman's. We could talk about Target. We could talk about Venture. We could talk about Meyer and Kohl's, you know, and their use of women of color. And, you know, it sent a message. So, yeah, you know, we might want to look down at the girls that are like, oh, she's a catalog model.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, something that is a part of this, certainly not to take anything away from any of the models, but, you know, in the way history books are presented and the way history is written, it's always, you know, so-and-so was the first black this or the first black that, and it's framed as if that they were the first Black or African-American, what have you, who was finally good enough to whatever, but that isn't the reality. It was just that finally someone, probably white people in a position of power, gave in or made the decision.
Let's talk about that, because I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that right now, because one of the things
the tea is hot.
The tea is hot. The tea is piping hot. I need to stick mine in the microwave. It is hot. But there is this subtle thread that runs through fashion where there is a camaraderie between models of color and gay guys.
Mm-hmm.
It is always that gay art director or that gay photographer or that gay stylist that's like, we need to use Iman because she's amazing. We need to use Donyale Luna because she's fabulous. We're the ones that are behind the scenes, like low key, like putting the idea out there that, we need to move forward. So we might not even be thinking in our heads, we need to move forward. We might just be thinking, she is fantastic. Let's use her. I can't wait to get her in the studio. I want to beat that face. I want to put that outfit on her. Girl, let's do this. But we're the ones that are subtly pushing forward change because if you think about it, Black people of color and gay people, we sort of have the same battles that we fight. And we should be allies for each other. And often, especially in fashion, we are. You know what I mean? So when I see the first, I feel like there was like a couple of gay guys that were back there really pushing. And finally somebody was like, okay, fine. Let's use Donyale Luna. Let's put her on the cover. Let's figure out how to get this done. So you'll leave us alone. But more importantly, it is like, it wasn't that she was so special and therefore she was first. Yeah. Because what's really interesting, and Kirsty Bowser, who's in the book, I'm going to start showing images from the book. But Kirsty Bowser, who's in the book, she talks about when Veronica Webb first got, there's Iman. I mean, come on. Iman and the new Iman. But Kirsty Bowser, who's in the book, she talks about when Veronica Webb got the Revlon contract. No, you know who it is? It's not Kirsty Bowser. This is so funny. It's Karen Alexander, who talk about the catalog queen and talk about an editorial queen who did both. Karen Alexander talks about it in her essay, in her interview I did with her, which is like 2 pages long. It's amazing. She talks about being around at the time when Veronica Webb got her historic Revlon contract. And she's like, it wasn't like, it's just Veronica. And it wasn't like, well, Naomi's going to get it because Naomi's #1. They were all just happy that somebody got it. Mm-hmm. That Revlon had decided to finally give somebody a contract of color. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, Veronica's the most special or Naomi's the most special or this person's not the most special. It really is about like, okay, it's time. Now we're going to take that brave step forward. So let's do it, or now it's commercially viable. Now the temperature, seems to be right. Because one of the other things that I hate about the way that Black models and models of color got covers is that the conventional thought in fashion, and we still deal with that today, is that models of color don't sell magazines. Yeah. But what happens is every time you put a model of color on a magazine cover, that magazine becomes the biggest selling magazine. Yeah. So,
as Vogue Italia showed.
Yes, reprinted 4 times.
4 times.
Sold out 4 times. But let's talk about Beverly Johnson's first American Vogue cover. Mm-hmm. That Vogue cover comes out in August of 1974 and becomes the #1 selling Vogue to date. That Vogue cover was so historic that they go later, okay, hey, Quaff do. They go, okay, that Vogue cover did really well, so let's start putting Black models on the cover, but we're only going to do it maybe once a year or maybe once every other year. So you get one. Out of 12 issues, you get one. And I'm talking about like not Black models, I'm talking about any model of color. Mm-hmm. So then they put Peggy Dillard on the cover of American Vogue, this gorgeous cover, or one of them that are similar. And Peggy Dillard's cover becomes the #1 selling Vogue ever. So you put 2 Black women in the span of how many years on the cover of the magazine that they both sell out and become the #1 bestsellers. And you still don't get that the myth that Black women don't sell covers or people of color don't sell covers is a myth. It's like, it's so crazy. And like you said, 2008 was the all Black Vogue. In 2008, we were still dealing with that. They finally do an all Black issue and that sells out 4 times. And you would think from that point on, it would be like multiple, you know, Asian women, Latin women, because everybody wants themselves represented. No. You would think that once a year there would be an all Black Vogue. Nope. You would think that they would do an all Latin Vogue, which would be amazing, or an all Asian Vogue. Nope, nope. You know.
Yeah, you know, there's a presentation I'm working on for one of our later expos, where we have done seminars and panels where we discuss celebrating you know, different ways of representing your own personal style, and really how that can be empowering to certainly minoritized groups and individuals. But I think one thing that relates to all of this that is so important is, I forget exactly what the figure is, I might get it off, but I believe it is the current, is it 7th or 8th grade student body of America is the line where everyone of that age, so I don't know what that is, like 14 or so, is that student body is the first class that is majority not white. And so that means every school year, every grade level under that gets less and less white. There doesn't become a majority. It's not like, you know, 51% African American or something, but it is no longer over 50% white for those classes. So what that means and why this is so important and what people need to pay attention to is, in just a few years, then that means this is you know, becomes a huge shift. And this is already should be very relevant to Disney and entertainment companies, because that means if your audience is children, right now, that audience is not majority white. So you need to be aware of that and be paying attention to that.
And tell our stories. Yes,
and it's so you have a huge young population, which is you know, biracial, multiracial, as well as then whole families, of course, of biracial, multiracial, multicultural parents. And if you're not tuned into how this cultural shift is happening, your advertising and product is going to be irrelevant to...
You're late. You're missing it, right? You're missing the whole point. You're missing the whole thing. If you're not on the cusp before it happens, and you're trying to play catch up, you're lost. But you know what is so impactful to me about what you just said about that is, that literally means that we have to start changing history books. That we have to start changing curriculums, because now we can't just tell the history of the hierarchy. We can't tell the history we can't tell one person's history. So I'm no longer going to learn just about how white people process history, and maybe 1 month out of the school year, February, learn about Crispus Attucks and Thurgood Marshall and Frederick Douglass. You have to teach that, and also the history of the Latino and the Asian. You have to add all of that into your curriculum to make your curriculum fair, to make it apply to actually your student body.
Yeah, and engaging and relatable, and you know, things like you know, this book that you've done, you know, shows not just to people of color what is possible and what can be celebrated, but it also shows that to white people.
You were sitting here across from me, I would be in your face, giving you the biggest, fattest kiss right now, because that is it. It's not it's about, that's what it's about. It's about diversity. It's about inclusion. And it doesn't mean that one race erases the other race. It just means that there's enough room at the table. There are enough seats at the table for everyone. everyone deserves a seat, everyone deserves a place, everyone deserves a voice. When I look at what's happening now in the United States and in the UK with Trump and with Boris, I think, and you see these white people out there and they're talking about white power and this and that with white people. It's like, we're not trying to take anything from you. We're not trying to supplant you and become like this weird number one. We just want the same things that you have, and we want the same access to it. We just want fairness. We just want equality. So us getting a seat at the table shouldn't take anything from you. You know, we're not saying, okay, now it's black people's turn and we're number one and now you have to live like a black person lives. No one should have to live how black people live every day. We have to think about the things we have to think about, and that's what we're saying. Yeah. You know, and that's why at the beginning of the conversation, I was so clear to point out that it's not a black book. It's a book where the topic, the subjects are black women, but it's a book that's about, first, we're all humans, right? Yeah. So I wrote a book about a group of humans that everybody should be able to learn something from. When somebody like opens their hearts and tells you what their experience is, and you listen with your heart and your mind, you eventually you learn something. You know, you learn something on the journey. I definitely learned something. I interviewed 40 top models from the 60s. I interviewed Daphne Maxwell Reid from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And in the 60s, she was the first black woman. She was a model with Ford. She was the first black woman on the cover of Glamour magazine. And she was so interesting because we all know her as the second Aunt Viv on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but she had this whole life before that. And she was so interesting because she talked about what it was like to be a fair-skinned African-American during that period, where people were testing out whether they can use black models. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you had to have light skin and long hair, and it had to be kind of good hair. You know what I mean? You had to be able to use white beauty products on you, you know, and it was so interesting. It was so interesting because she talked about the competition factor between black models, because black people are sort of groomed, which might not be the right way, to think of each other as competition. And I hate that. You never hear about Linda and Christy being each other's competition, or Claudia and Cindy Crawford being each other's competition, but it's always Naomi versus Tyra. Like there can only be one black person at a time.
Marcellas, I'm going to have to jump in here because I think at any moment we're going to hit an hour and this is going to end abruptly, whether I want it to or not. So, but whenever Expo can happen, whether it's June 20th and 21st, it's currently scheduled, or in November, we definitely want to have you there.
I'm coming.
Signing chat.
I am coming. I can't wait.
So show us the book again. It is Supreme Models, and it's available on Amazon now, and it even has its own Instagram.
Yes, it does. Supreme Models Book. So follow me and I'll follow you back at Supreme Models Book.
Excellent.
This was so lovely. This was such a nice Sunday afternoon. Thank you for thinking of me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad we got to have this all happen. And enjoy your Dapper Day at home, and we will be in touch soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.